Thank you, and thank you to the panel, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, I have a few questions, so if you can keep your answers as concise as possible. And I agree with a lot of what Representative Salazar just said. The Biden administration has emphasized the importance of the private sector in creating employment opportunities in the formal sector and contributing to economic growth for communities in the Northern Triangle. The concern seems to be in the U.S. is these funds going to corrupt institutions or officials or NGOs that really don't get the job done. We've invested hundreds of millions already, and really a lot of us don't see the results. What are we doing differently this time to be able to measure results and be able to pull the plug on something that's not working early on before we go all the way in? Do we have a system in place to where we have expectations, whether it's an NGO or the private sector or whatever government institution we're dealing with, so that does not happen?
Thanks for that question, Representative. Just a few quick points on that. As a general rule at USAID, we don't give our funds to foreign governments. That's particularly the case in the Northern Triangle. Just to put it in perspective, of our FY 2020 budget of $311 million, $5.8 million, I believe, went to government. That's about 1.6% of the total appropriation in 2020. Again, we work with trusted partners, contractors, NGOs, international organizations like the UN that I mentioned earlier. We work through grants and contracts that are subject to audits. The oversight starts with our field teams at missions in the 3 countries, at our field missions in the 3 countries, and it certainly extends to the USAID Inspector General, who watches those.
So what are we?
Closely.
What are we doing to check in on them regularly, every so often, to assure we're moving in the right direction? Because we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars in Central America, and still, I can tell you, I represent a border district, the Rio Grande Valley, that has really been hit hard by the complexities of Central America. So I'd love to see the investments have results and hopefully calm the migration that we have coming in. What are we doing besides get NGOs and USAID? Do we have a plan in place to have measurable results before we spend all these billions of dollars that we're committed to assure that at the end of the day we have measurable results that have a lasting impact on our southern border?
So thank you for that, sir. For all the investments that we make, we do have performance monitoring plans. We have project managers that monitor regularly those investments. We absolutely take feedback from our monitoring systems, and we make adjustments. I'll just give you one quick example. When I got to El Salvador in 2017, we had just cut off a project in a municipality where the mayor was not keen to work with us, and he wasn't serious about addressing the challenges that we wanted to address in partnership with him and with his municipality. More recently in El Salvador, we took a look at our data. We take a hard look at data on who's migrating and why, and we use that data to shut down one line of effort, which was university partnerships, and we're moving it toward more vocational training for young men, unemployed, victims of violence in urban areas. So we absolutely take a very serious.
I have a few more questions I'd like to ask. The next concern is Honduras. As we know, the present president's brother is serving a life-term sentence here in the United States. I think he's been looked at, and now we have a candidate, Yanni Rosenthal, who spent 4 years in U.S. prison and is now, I believe, is indicted. What are we doing to assure that people like this don't become presidents of these countries?
Thank you very much, Representative Gonzalez. I think the important here to point out that it's really up to the people of Honduras to elect their leaders. But of course, the United States selects who we work with. And as we've made very clear, we are prepared to work with those who are as committed as we are to the fight against corruption and transnational organized crime. So we respect the elections, but we also have standards for the people that we work with.
Yeah, this is obviously a clear concern. And lastly, and I know we're running out of time, some of y'all may know, I've been advocating being on the border and on border with small municipal communities that do not have the resources to deal with, the last 173,000 people who came mostly to my section of the border has really overwhelmed us and overwhelmed all our local capacity. And what I've advocated for is to have the same system that we have in my district in a very humane, clean, first-class American facilities closer to them on the southern Mexican border or the Guatemalan border, because I don't believe this is going to end. I mean, we're talking about climate migration down the road and maybe other countries down the road. What are we doing in planning long-term ideas to be able to help folks closer to home and have these processing centers and maybe refugee settlements or whatever it is to do to help this mass migration that's coming north, further south, and to keep them from coming through Mexico, which at this time, me and my neighboring congressman calculated that just in the last 90 days, cartels have probably been enriched about $1.2 billion just from the migration that occurred this year at $6,000 a head, with an average of $6,000 a head that they're charging. I figure that if we had the operations that we have in my district in cooperation with either with Mexico or Guatemala or both on that border and had the same system in place, and whether you're looking for a credible threat or ultimately I envision actually being able to have your asylum hearing in safe zones where we can guarantee their safety. I think we need to start having out-of-the-box ideas, or we're going to continue dealing with this on our southern border. And when I say doing this in these countries, I mean doing it in a fashion that is first class, that is respectable, that is humane, that is clean and dignified, no different than as if they came to the United States. And if they have a credible threat, or if they're granted asylum, they can just get an airplane and fly in and take the cartels out of this equation. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman. You want to respond to that?
If I could, Congressman, you have exactly defined our effort in Mexico and in Northern Central America to build that capacity locally, because, among other things, Mexico is no longer just a transit country, it's a destination country. And we do know that, and in fact, we've committed significant resources over the last few years working with international organizations to build protection capacity into the immigration systems along the way, and in close collaboration with governments in Mexico and in Central America to do precisely that. And as you say, the importance has to be treating people with dignity and giving them access to the resources locally so that they don't feel like they have to transit to the U.S. border. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, no,
I'd love to be.
Lo siento. Sorry.